Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Married Ino, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Naruto sat there by a lake in the forest, furious and hurt beyond belief. As he stared at the water, he knew it was only a matter of time before she found him. That's if she comes and looks for me. Naruto looked over at the tree where Ino and him had a picnic just last week, and he had told her that he loved her and she told him it back. Naruto continued to sit there as he heard the sounds of someone's feet hitting branches. It sounded feminine. Guess she did come looking for me. Naruto just continued to sit there looking at the lake as he heard the person land behind him, and he looked over his shoulder to see Ino standing there looking at him, and he looked back at the lake. What? His tone was harsh and cold. He had never spoken to her like that, but she understood it. Naruto-kun. I didn't mean to say his name. Naruto just continued to stare at the lake as she came closer to him and sat next to him. It doesn't matter, you said. His name while we were together. Naruto went to stand up, but she pulled him back down to the ground and held his arm. No, Naruto-kun, you're not just going to leave. Naruto pulled away from her and he looked at her and rose his voice. I am not just going to leave Ino, I am going to go get drunk and forget any of this ever happened, any of it. Ino looked in his eyes as they started to turn red from as his anger let the QB chakra start to take over his normal chakra. Naruto-kun, please don't just leave me. I know that it hurt you, but I meant to say your name. I was in a world of pure pleasure because of you and I wasn't thinking. Naruto was breathing hard. He was trying to keep his anger in check, but he was finding it harder and harder to do. Oh, so you go to a world of pure pleasure and you think of him. Glad I know. Naruto stood and started to walk away, and she looked as he took what she said the wrong way, and he walked away and yelled at him. Naruto-kun, please stop. Naruto Uzumaki, stop right now. Naruto stopped when she yelled at him, and he looked over his shoulder at her as she stood and ran over to him. Please, don't do this. I love you, Naruto. Naruto caught her in his arms out of pure reflex and listened to her. He didn't know if he could honestly believe that she loved him and not Shikamaru, but he knew that he loved her, and right now he was hating that fact. Ino could feel how stiff he felt from her holding on to him and not his usual embrace, and the feeling of wanting her to never let him go, but she held on to him. I can't let him just leave me. She looked up at Naruto, who looked like he was struggling with it all, and she had to make him feel more at ease. Naruto, I know you're mad. I know you're hurt. I know that you are thinking I love him and not you. But I do love you, more than anything. I know that you get jealous and think you have to compete for my emotions with Shikamaru, but you don't. You think that I don't get jealous when I see Sakura, Hinata, Tenten, or all the other girls talking to you and giggling, or when you are sent on a mission with another woman. You think that I don't get jealous from all the songs that you wrote for or because of Sakura. Don't act like you're the only one who feels like they have to try and constantly prove that they are the right person for the other so that they won't lose them. I honestly didn't mean to say his name. I wouldn't want to be with anyone else. I wouldn't want anyone else to touch me the way that you do. Please don't just leave and forget about all the good things that he have been through by drinking away your pain by something that I wish didn't happen, and if I could take it back I would. Naruto was looking at her. There were tears gathering in the corners of her eyes, but he had never thought that Ino was feeling like she had to compete for him. He never considered another woman since they started to be together. Ino-chan. Ino put her finger to his lips and sighed as she continued to look at him. I am not finished yet, Naruto. I am falling in love with you, Naruto. I really am, but this was supposed to be an important night for you and I ruined it, so if you want to. Ino breathed as she felt tears starting to go down her cheeks. She knew that this was the right thing to do after what happened. If you want to break up, then I understand, Naruto. Ino released him from her embrace and stepped back a couple steps so that he could think, but he instantly lifted her chin and kissed her and kept on kissing her. Ino wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him in closer to her, deepening their kiss until he broke apart for some air. I'm sorry too, Ino-chan. I shouldn't have just left like that. And there is no reason for you to worry about me and some other woman. I only want one woman, and that is you. Ino held herself close to him. She had honestly never planned on telling him that she was always getting jealous of the other girls being even near her boyfriend. It's not you I worry about, Naruto-kun. It's them that I don't trust. Besides Hinata, I have to keep a close eye on them. Naruto put his arms around her and held her close to him. This was the type of hugs that she was used to and loved getting. Naruto sat down by a tree and Ino sat down and leaned her back against his chest and he put his arms around her waist and held her close to him as he leaned back against the tree. Ino smiled as he held her and they stayed quiet. Ino had something to say but was worried about bringing it up. Naruto-kun. Naruto looked at her as she looked over her shoulder at him and he released her from his grasp and she turned and faced him. Are we going to, be physical anymore? I would understand. But I hope that you don't just stop wanting me. Naruto put his arms around her and looked at her. He really didn't have an answer for her, Ino-chan. I really don't know at the moment. It hurt so much when you moaned his name. But I know that I will want to be like that with you still. So at the moment the only answer that I can give you is there is no one other than you I can imagine being like that with. Ino laid her head on his chest. She understood that and she knew that all she could do was be patient and wait until he was ready to be like that again. Naruto could sense how terrible she felt and put his arms around her and kissed her forehead. Ino-chan, I am sure we will be that way again soon, I will just need a little time is all. Ino nodded as she looked up at him and leaned up and kissed him as they broke from the kiss he smiled at her. Are you hungry Ino-chan? We lost our reservations but I can take you somewhere else if you want. Ino shook her head no but still stood up. I want to go back to your place and make you dinner Naruto-kun, if that's okay. Naruto nodded and stood up off of the ground and she intertwined their fingers as they walked back to his apartment and he pushed his door and it fell to the ground. I need to fix that. Ino walked into his kitchen and started to make them food as he fixed the door to his apartment and then came into the kitchen. Do you need any help Ino-chan? Ino shook her head no I am making dinner for you so just sit down and admire how gorgeous I am or something like that. Ino laughed at her comment and Naruto smiled as he sat down at the table and watched her cook the dinner and she looked over at him. What are you doing Naruto-kun? Naruto continued to smile as he looked at her. I am doing what you told me to do, I am admiring how beautiful you really are. Ino blushed as she looked back at the dinner and it was almost done and she smiled and she kept smiling as she finished it and put it on plates for them. She made homemade ramen. Naruto smiled as he looked at it and she sat down across the table from him and he got up and got them drinks and thanked her for making dinner. Don't think that I have forgotten Naruto-kun. Naruto looked at her in a confused way having no idea what she was talking about. What do I think that you have forgotten Ino-chan? Ino smiled as she took a bite of the ramen and then looked over at him. You said you were going to sing the song you wrote for me tonight. Naruto nodded as he remembered and smiled as he took a bite of the delicious ramen she made for him. Well, I technically wrote you 2 songs, I wanted to surprise you. Ino's smile got bigger as he said he wrote her 2 songs and she couldn't wait to hear him sing them to her. Okay, after dinner I want you to sing them for me okay Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded at her and they finished the dinner that Ino made for them and cleaned off their plates and Ino basically drug him into the living room and sat him down by his guitar and he laughed. Anxious are we Ino-chan? Ino nodded as she sat next to him and he plugged in the guitar to his amp and strummed the chords to make sure they were still tuned correctly and then started to play the first song for her. The strands in your eyes that color them wonderful. Stop me and steal my breath. And emeralds from mountains thrust towards the sky. Never revealing the depth. Tell me that we belong together. Dress it up with the trappings of love. I'll be captivated. I'll hang from your lips. Instead of the gallows of heartache that hang from above. I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love's suicide. I'll be better when I'm older. I'll be the greatest fan of your life. And rain falls angry on the tin roof. As we lie awake in my bed. You're my survival, you're my living proof. My love is alive and not dead. Tell me that we belong together. Dress it up with the trappings of love. I'll be captivated. I'll hang from your lips. Instead of the gallows of heartache that hang from above. Ino smiled as she listened to the song that he had written just for her and couldn't believe the kind of depth that he had put into the song. Sure, she had been the one that asked for the song and everything, but she wasn't expecting something like this. All of the songs she read that he wrote for or because of Sakura weren't nearly as good. I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love's suicide. I'll be better when I'm older. I'll be the greatest fan of your life. And I've dropped out, I've burned up, I've fought my way back from the dead. I've tuned in, turned on, remembered the things that you said. I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love's suicide. I'll be better when I'm older. I'll be the greatest fan of your. I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love's suicide. I'll be better when I'm older. I'll be the greatest fan of your life. The greatest fan of your life. Greatest fan of your life. Quote. Ino smiled as he finished the first song and got closer to him and kissed him, and he put his arm around her as she did and kissed her back. As they broke from the kiss, Naruto smiled at her. I will take that as you like the first song that I wrote for you then, Ino-chan. Ino nodded as she couldn't seem to find her voice, and he smiled at her and kissed her again. Okay, well, hopefully you will like the second song just as much. Naruto repositioned himself and strummed the guitar a couple more times as he smiled. Ino had noticed he was typically happy when he played the guitar. As Naruto started to sing the second song, Ino smiled and listened to it and wondered if he realized just how in love she was with him. Every time our eyes meet, this feeling inside me is almost more than I can take. Baby, when you touch me, I can feel how much you love me. And it just blows me away. I've never been this close to anyone or anything. I can hear your thoughts. I can see your dreams. I don't know how you do what you do. I'm so in love with you. It just keeps getting better. I want to spend the rest of my life with you by my side. Forever and ever. Every little thing that you do. Baby, I'm amazed by you. Ino blushed at the song as she listened to it. She thought that the first song was sweet, but this song was completely getting to her. There were parts of the lyrics that she was focusing on, like being in love and spending the rest of his life with her, and she wondered if he really meant what he was singing to her or if it was just to go with the song. The smell of your skin. The taste of your kiss. The way you whisper in the dark. Your hair all around me. Baby, you surround me. You touch every place in my heart. Oh, it feels like the first time every time. I want to spend the whole night in your eyes. I don't know how you do what you do. I'm so in love with you. It just keeps getting better. I want to spend the rest of my life with you by my side. Forever and ever. Every little thing that you do. Baby, I'm amazed by you. Every little thing that you do. I'm so in love with you. It just keeps getting better. I want to spend the rest of my life with you by my side. Forever and ever. Every little thing that you do. Oh, every little thing that you do. Baby, I'm amazed by you. Naruto finished and he turned off the guitar and looked at her and smiled at her as she seemed to be blown away by the songs. Well, what did you think, Ino-chan? Ino smiled as she pushed him down on the couch and started to kiss him, and he wrapped his arms around her and kissed her back with just as much passion and love as she kissed him with, and when she broke he smiled at her. Naruto-kun. Naruto looked at her and saw that she looked like she was struggling with something. What's wrong, Ino-chan? Did you not like the songs? Ino shook her head and looked at him. No, I loved the songs that you wrote for me. I was wondering if you meant everything you sang in your songs. Naruto smiled at her and pulled her down into another kiss, and when they broke he looked into her eyes. Of course I meant what I sang in the songs. You asked me to write you a song about how I felt about you and us, so I wrote two, but I meant every word. Why? Ino smiled as she looked down at him and ran her hand on his cheek. So you really are in love with me and want to spend the rest of your life with me? Naruto looked at her and smiled as he sat up and put his arms around her and held her close and whispered in her ear, of course, Ino-chan. Ino wrapped her arms around his neck and smiled and kissed his cheek and whispered in his ear, I think those were the best two songs you have ever written. Naruto smiled as he held her and moved his face in front of hers. Well, you won't be the one to know, Ino-chan. You're the one who has read every one of my songs. Ino smiled at him and leaned in and kissed him gently, but it quickly escalated to more as he laid back on the couch and she glided her tongue into his mouth. He ran his hands up and down her back as she put her hand on his cheek and felt him getting hard underneath her and broke the kiss, remembering what he said earlier. It wouldn't be right to force him into something or play his emotions against him again after earlier. Naruto looked at her in a confused fashion. They were in a heated makeout session, then all of a sudden she pulled away from him. Is something wrong, Ino-chan? She just smiled at him and kissed his forehead and laid down on his chest. No, nothing is wrong, Naruto-kun. Everything is perfect. He knew that she was lying to him. Not one time had she been the one to stop a makeout session. She had been late to appointments, missions, dinners with her family, all because she didn't want to stop kissing him. Ino-chan, tell me what's wrong. Ino nuzzled her head on his hard chest and replied without looking at him, why do you think that something is wrong, Naruto-kun? Naruto ran his hand on her back as he looked at the top of her head. Well, in the months that we have been dating, you have never been the one that stopped a makeout session. Ino looked up at him finally and she looked a little sad and worried. It's nothing, Naruto-kun, I just wanted to cuddle with you. Naruto knew that she was still lying to him, and as he looked at her he started to piece it all together and looked at her. Ino-chan, come here. Ino came closer to him and he pulled her into another passionate kiss and felt her heartbeat quicken, and he broke the kiss. I get why you stopped earlier, Ino-chan. You don't have to worry about that, I knew full well that what we were doing could have lead to more. I know what I said earlier, Ino-chan, but that doesn't mean I don't want to kiss you and be with you. When we get to that stage again I will want you, so you don't have to hold back because of me. Ino smiled at him and put her hand on his cheek again and kissed him, but pulled away and laid her head down on his shoulder. I love you, Naruto-kun. Naruto put his arm around her and smiled at her, saying that she loved him, and kissed her forehead. I love you too, Ino-chan. To say tensions were a little high between the two blondes over the next week would be an understatement. They both felt like they were walking on eggshells around each other. They both were worried that one wrong action or word would end up being the end of them after the incident in the bedroom, even if they felt they resolved it that night. Naruto was hoping that the next date night would fix some of that as he was getting dressed to go out with her. He didn't know where they were going yet, since it was her turn to pick where they went. Naruto finished getting dressed and grabbed his wallet and keys and locked up his apartment and walked to Ino's apartment and knocked on the door. He was surprised to see Shikamaru open the door to Ino's apartment and leaving with a smile on his face, and Naruto watched as he left and Ino came out of the apartment glaring at him. Naruto looked from Shikamaru down to Ino and noticed her glaring at him. So I hear you have been going on dates with Sakura. Naruto rose his eyebrow at her and shook his head. No, of course not, Ino-chan, I wouldn't do something like that to you. Who told you that I was? Ino continued to glare at him and pointed to where Shikamaru had walked down the stairs, and he looked at Ino in disbelief. So you believe him over me? Ino stood there and didn't reply. Her insecurities were playing a big role in her current emotional state, and they just continued to look at each other. Naruto couldn't believe it and just turned and went to leave, and she looked at him. Where are you going? We weren't finished talking yet. Naruto stopped where he stood and turned and looked at her. What is there to talk about? That you think I would cheat on you? That you believe the guy who has been trying to break us up for the last 4 months over your boyfriend? Which do you want to talk about first? Ino took a step back as Naruto rose his voice in anger and irritation with the blonde woman, and she didn't reply to him. So you pick neither? Then I am going to go, since I don't think we are having our date tonight. Naruto turned and walked down the stairs, and Ino stood there and closed the door to her apartment, muttering under her breath that he was an asshole. She went and turned on a movie and sat there watching it, and the more she thought about it the more she understood why he got angry and sighed, damn it, I need to go find him then. Ino grabbed her phone and tried to call his cell phone, but it would ring 3 times and then go to his voicemail, meaning he was seeing that it was her and hanging up. Ino went and got dressed and grabbed her purse and keys and left her apartment, locking up behind her, and went looking for her boyfriend. She had a good idea of where he would be. Naruto was currently sitting in a bar drinking scotch straight from the bottle. Stupid woman, thinking I would cheat on her and believing that guy over me. Ino had currently checked 4 of the bars that were near her apartment, and there was only one left before she went over by Naruto's apartment to check those bars, and she opened the door and saw him sitting there drinking his scotch with an irritated look on his face. Ino came and stood behind him, and he didn't notice. He was too wrapped up in his own thoughts. Hey sexy, need a date? Naruto heard the words but didn't recognize the voice. I currently have a girlfriend, sorry. Try back in a couple days, since it looks like she doesn't trust me. Naruto took another hit off of his bottle of scotch, and the person who had spoke to him sat down next to him, and he groaned, I said no. Naruto turned to see Ino sitting there and looked at her, and then turned forward and took a drink out of his bottle and said nothing, and there was an awkward air around the two of them. Ino slowly put her arm around Naruto's arm, and he looked at it and then at her. I thought that you were mad at me, Ino-chan. He went to take another hit off of his bottle, and she put her hand on his forearm to stop him. Please stop drinking and let's talk about this, Naruto-kun. Naruto looked at her and put down the bottle and looked at her and waited for her to start the conversation. Can we talk somewhere more private? Naruto nodded, and she grabbed his hand and led him back to her apartment, and they sat down on her couch, and she looked at him. Naruto-kun. Naruto looked at her and was waiting, but she wasn't able to find her voice, it seemed. Ino-chan, do you really think that I would cheat on you? Ino looked at him and then shook her head no and sat back in her couch. He had so much information though, saying he followed you both. Naruto looked at her and put his hand under his chin and gently made it so she was looking at him. I wouldn't cheat on you, Ino-chan, I love you. I mean, the one person I really don't want around you was here with you, and I didn't think you were cheating on me or something like that. Ino looked at him and she started to feel even worse now. She hadn't really thought about the fact it was Shikamaru that was here after he said Naruto was cheating on her with Sakura. Naruto hadn't even been in the same room as Shikamaru recently because of their incident last week, so of course he wouldn't really want Ino to be in the same room as him. Ino started to cry a little bit and Naruto put his arms around her and pulled her into his chest and she cuddled into him. Naruto rubbed her back as she started to calm down a little and she clung to him tighter, not wanting to let him go. Ino looked up into his eyes and he looked back at her and she leaned forward and kissed him gently and he kissed her back. When the young couple broke from the kiss, she looked at him. I am sorry, Naruto-kun, can you forgive me again? Naruto looked at her and put his hand on her cheek and pulled her into another kiss and broke it and looked her dead in the eyes. Of course, Ino-chan, I love you. Ino started to tear up again and she buried her face into his chest and he looked at her. Did I say something that upset you, Ino-chan? Ino shook her head no and continued to hold on to him and looked up at him. You're so forgiving when I keep making stupid mistakes and always keep taking me back. It just makes me happy is all, Naruto-kun. Naruto pulled her up and kissed her again and she put her arms around his neck and deepened their kiss and they kept kissing until they were out of breath and she panted as she looked at Naruto. He put his hand on her cheek and smiled at her. Would you still like to go and do something tonight, Ino-chan, or would you rather stay in and watch movies or something along those lines? Ino leaned forward and kissed him some more and she pushed him down on her couch and broke the kiss and smiled at him. What do you think? Naruto smiled at her and put his hand on her cheek and winked at her. I think that you want to go get some food and do something, then pick this up later. Ino sat up on Naruto and thought about it. Her original thought was to just keep sitting here kissing him, but she was hungry and she was sure that he probably was as well. Ino agreed and got off of Naruto and went and got a jacket and they walked to a Mexican food restaurant and ate. The more that they sat there and talked, the more that the tension they had been feeling lately was disappearing. Naruto paid for their food and they started to walk down the street hand in hand, and then Ino decided on what else she wanted to do and took Naruto to the game parlor. They walked in and Ino saw that there was pool table open and Naruto saw she wanted to play and went and paid to have the table for a couple of hours and got the balls and cues for the table and walked with her over to the table. Naruto racked the balls and Ino chalked her cue and got ready to break, and Naruto waited and she broke and sunk 2 solid balls and Naruto looked at her. I have this feeling that I am going to get my ass kicked. Ino smiled at him and shot and made another solid and he sighed. You know, if you are this good I am going to have to use other tactics to just have a chance at winning. Ino looked at him and rose an eyebrow at him and he smiled at her and she shot in another solid and he walked over to her as she was lining up her shot and ran a hand along her waist to her stomach, getting a small moan from her, and she shot and the ball didn't do anything that she wanted. She glared at him and he leaned down and kissed her gently and smiled at her. You got to at least give me a chance to win, Ino-chan, otherwise I will just keep teasing you. Ino smiled as she leaned up and he thought she was going to kiss him and then kissed his cheek and whispered into his ear seductively, remember to can play that game, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled and kissed her neck and went to shoot the ball and saw that he had 4 strikes all clustered together and power shot at him, knocking 2 in. Ino looked at him and her glare returned. What happened to you thinking you were going to get your ass kicked? Seems like you know what you are doing to me, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled as he lined up another shot and made 2 more and looked at her. I never said that I didn't know what I was doing, Ino-chan, I just said I thought I was going to get my ass kicked. Ino watched as he lined up another shot and made it, and he only had 2 left on the table and she had 3 in the 8 ball. Naruto lined up and made his last 2 and smiled at her and was lining up his shot on the 8th ball and called it in the corner pocket, and she came up next to him and whispered into his ear, Naruto-kun, I'm not wearing any panties today. Naruto's eyes went wide and he shot and the cue ball went straight into a pocket, making it so he lost for scratching on the 8 ball, and he looked at her and she smiled at him, told you 2 could play dirty. Naruto glared at her as she racked up the balls again and they continued to play for the couple of hours Naruto had rented the table for. They both continued to use dirty tactics to try and beat the other one, but Ino kept on beating him. He was too easy for her to manipulate. Naruto sighed as they walked out of the parlor and she grabbed onto his hand and smiled at him. Don't pout, Naruto-kun, you're not as cute as I am when I do it. Naruto smiled and looked down at her and put his arm around her and walked her back to her apartment and kissed her goodnight and went to leave and she grabbed his arm. Where are you going, Naruto-kun? Naruto pointed to the stairs. I was going to go home. I take it that I am not going home anytime soon though. Ino smiled and nodded and pulled him into her apartment and started to kiss him passionately and broke from it. You said we got to continue this. Naruto smiled and picked her up off of the ground and carried her to her bedroom and laid her down on the bed and they continued their make-out session which resulted in her giving him a blowjob and him eating her out in the end and him sleeping over at her apartment for the night. Lemon chapter. Another month and a half passed in their relationship and they had yet to get another chance at sex. They had done everything else again but they never got that far. One night Naruto had planned it all out. He made him dinner, had candles lit and had soft music playing in the background but when they were getting to that there was a knock at his door and he had to leave for an immediate S-rank mission. He was so furious at this. He must have apologized to her 100 times before he actually left for his mission and she smiled at him and said that they could continue when he got back and that was a week ago and he was supposed to be back today. Ino knew that after a S-rank mission a shinobi and their significant other, girlfriend or more regardless of if the other was a shinobi or not a mission would not be given for at least a week off so she knew that tonight they could continue. Ino went to the store and picked up food and took it to her apartment and Kiba helped her carry the bags but Ino knew why he was really there. Naruto told you to make sure Shikamaru stays away from me, didn't he? Kiba laughed and scratched the back of his head. Yeah. He said that Shikamaru has been appearing more lately and he didn't trust him while he was gone on mission. Ino smiled as she unpacked the groceries and started to cook them since they would take a while. Well, I appreciate it, Kiba. I have to go put a note at Naruto's apartment and come back. Will you come with and make sure Shikamaru doesn't come near? Naruto might kill you if you fail him. Kiba nodded and they walked to Naruto's apartment talking about how things were going in their relationships and she unlocked the door with her key and wrote a note and put it on his fridge and smiled. Okay Kiba, we can head back to my apartment. Maybe sometime this week we can have a double date, you and Hinata and Naruto and I. Kiba nodded and said he would talk to Hinata about it and they approached her apartment complex and Shikamaru was standing there and Ino sighed. It was almost too good to be true that he would leave me alone the week Naruto was gone. Kiba looked over at Shikamaru and got a serious expression on his face. Shikamaru, you should leave. I won't let you get near my best friend's girl. Shikamaru ignored Kiba and came towards Ino and Kiba went to stop him but Kiba felt a hand on his shoulder and he looked over his shoulder to see Naruto standing there looking at Shikamaru and Shikamaru froze from the look of bloodlust in Naruto's eyes. Leave, now. Shikamaru looked at Ino who smiled as she saw Naruto standing there and looked back at Shikamaru and he took a step towards Ino. Ino, you know he is wrong for you. He is a monster. Look at the bloodlust that is in his eyes right now. You honestly can't feel safe with someone like him. Shikamaru took another step towards Ino and went to reach for her but Naruto grabbed his wrist and broke it with his pure strength and released. I told you to leave. Shikamaru yelled out in pain but he didn't move away and looked at Ino then at Naruto. No. She deserves to be with someone of worth. Naruto delivered a chakra-fueled kick to Shikamaru's leg breaking it and then as Shikamaru fell to the ground Naruto stepped down on his arm and broke it. You should have left Shikamaru, I really don't like you being near my girlfriend. Naruto turned around to see Ino and his anger simply melted away as he smiled at her. Hey gorgeous, I am back. Ino smiled as she quickly embraced him in a hug and he ran his hand through her hair and looked over at Kiba and nodded to his friend. Thanks for watching out for her, Kiba. Kiba smiled and patted his friend on the shoulder. No problem buddy, you know that I always got your back. I am going to go and find my fiancé now. Naruto and Ino said goodbye to their friend and Naruto looked down at Ino and she smiled at him. Hey handsome. Naruto smiled back at her and leaned down and kissed her and she put her arm around his neck pulling him in closer and he ran his hands down her back to her hips and they broke the kiss and he smiled at her. I missed you too Ino-chan. Ino smiled at him and put her hand on his cheek and winked at him. Who says that I missed you, huh, Naruto-kun? Naruto reached in his back pocket and pulled out the note she wrote for him and showed it to her. Unless a different Ino wrote this and got into my apartment then you said you missed me. Ino smiled as she saw the note that she wrote. I just wrote that note like 10 minutes ago Naruto-kun. How did you already read it and get here? Naruto looked at her and shrugged. I was already planning to find you when I dropped off my gear and I saw the note you wrote saying to meet you at your apartment, so I ran over here. Ino smiled as she looked down at a crying Shikamaru and then back at Naruto. Let's go inside, okay Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded and offered her his hand, and before she took it she delivered a hard kick into Shikamaru's crotch. Don't ever talk about my Naruto-kun like that in front of me again. Ino grabbed his hand and he smiled at her and walked with her up the stairs to her apartment. I am glad that I am always on your side, Ino-chan. Ino put her head on Naruto's shoulder as they got to her door and she unlocked the door and they entered, and it smelled good in there. Smells great, Ino-chan. Are you making us dinner? Ino nodded and quickly closed the door to her bedroom, and Naruto looked at her. There are surprises in there for later, Naruto-kun. Naruto rose an eyebrow at her comment and she was blushing as he looked at her. We are going to continue what we didn't get to finish before you left, Naruto-kun. I know the rules. If you have an S-ranked mission we get at least a week off. Naruto smiled at her as she walked over to him and she put her hand on his cheek and winked at him. Unless you don't want to continue where we left of, that is, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled at her and leaned down and kissed her passionately and pulled her close to him before breaking for air. Of course I want to, Ino-chan. Ino smiled and told Naruto that he could make himself as comfortable as he wanted, and he took off his black shirt and stood there in his black beater, and Ino smiled as she looked at his muscles and kissed him again. Ino smiled at him and walked into the kitchen, and Naruto followed her and helped her where he could, but she was being persistent on being the one that made the food. Naruto kept helping here and there when she wasn't looking and smiling when she caught him and kissing her, always made her happy when he kissed her. Ino gave Naruto the stuff to put on the table and told him that he could do that, and he nodded and went and set the table for them, and she grabbed out a bottle of red wine and handed it to him to put on the table, and he did, and then lit the candles she had on the table and he smiled at her. It was taking everything she had to not just blow off dinner and try to get him into the bedroom with her now, but he had been on mission all week and she was sure he wanted something to eat other than her, and she blushed at her own thoughts. Naruto noticed her blushing and came up behind her and put his hands on her sides and ran them to her stomach, receiving a small moan from her. What are you blushing about, Ino-chan? Ino bit her lower lip to keep herself under control and turned off the stove and looked over her shoulder at him. Who said I was blushing? Naruto smiled at her and kissed her neck, receiving another moan from her, and he smiled. If you want to deny it, Ino-chan, that is up to you. He leaned in close and she could feel his hot breath and he spoke sensually in her ear. But you always look so beautiful when you blush. Ino was screaming on the inside to just take him right there, and she turned and looked at him and put her hand on his cheek and rubbed his whisker marks, receiving a moan from him. You're having fun teasing me, aren't you, Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled at her and leaned in and kissed her gently and then whispered in her ear. Well, you tease me all the time, thought I should teach you another lesson. Ino smiled and watched as he lifted the pans off of the stove for her and carried them to the hot plates that he put on the table, and he sat down and then she sat on his lap, surprising him. Is this how we are eating dinner, Ino-chan? Ino smiled as she looked over her shoulder at him and looked back at the food. You needed to be taught a lesson, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled and wrapped his left arm around Ino's waist and tried to eat one-handed with his right, but was finding it more difficult to do than he originally expected it to be, but he did it and was happy to hold Ino, so he was willing to make the sacrifice. Ino finished her food and Naruto did as well, and she looked back at him and she smiled at him as he seemed happy to just to be with her. Naruto-kun, will you take care of the dishes while I go and do a couple of things really quick, please? Naruto smiled as he released her from his grip and she stood and he started to pick up the dishes and clean them off for her while she slipped into her bedroom. Ino looked around and lit all the candles that she had placed around the room and spread the flower petals that she had plucked for the occasion and opened her drawer and grabbed the special lingerie that she bought for tonight. She took off her clothes and slipped on the black lace panties and the black see-through top and looked around and saw that the room was set except for the music, and she turned on soft romantic music and opened the door to her bedroom and saw Naruto still cleaning the dishes, and she snuck up on him and put her hands over his eyes and kissed his shoulder. Naruto smiled and turned off the water and turned around to face her, and his eyes instantly dropped to her outfit as she posed for him. What do you think, Naruto-kun? Naruto smirked as he put his hands on her hips and kissed her passionately. You look amazing, Ino-chan, so good I almost don't want to take it off of you. Ino smiled as she kissed him again and he lifted her up and she wrapped her legs around his waist and he carried her into her bedroom. Naruto walked to the bed and laid her down gently and started to kiss her neck as she made quick work of getting his beater off of him and admired his scarless and well-sculpted body. Naruto put his hand on her kneecap and slowly ran it up her leg, grazing her womanhood through her panties and continuing to take it up and stopped on her stomach to tease her. Ino moaned as he touched her, and when his hand stopped, her eyes shot open and she looked at him and took off his headband and flicked his forehead. "You're not allowed to tease Naruto-kun." Naruto smiled at her and kissed her lips and slowly glided his tongue inside her mouth and continued to take his hand up to her breast and ran his fingers over her nipple to get it erect and then did the same to her other breast, and he took off her top and tossed it onto the ground and she rolled him over and straddled him as she sat there topless and started to grind into him through his pants, and he moaned out as she ran her hand down his chest to his seal. "What happened to no teasing?" Ino smiled at him and started to grind into him quicker and harder, and he moaned her name. "I said you're not allowed to tease, not that I wouldn't tease you." Ino's hand moved down some more and undid his belt buckle and took off his pants but left his boxes on, and he rolled her onto the bottom and kissed down her body, starting at her lips to her neck and both breasts, sucking and nibbling on both erect nipples, then down her stomach, and he slowly took off her lace panties and kissed back up her thigh. He smiled as he looked up at her and she bit her lip and waited. He was a natural when it came to eating her out and every time made her orgasm at least once. Naruto blew on her wet womanhood and kept a gentle stream going for about 20 seconds, and Ino moaned from it, and then he licked her fold and slipped his tongue through her lips inside of her and she moaned his name loudly. Naruto grabbed her hips as he pleasured her, twisting his tongue around inside of her and rubbing it against all of her walls, and he flicked her clit and she orgasmed, and he licked up her juices and then started to suck on her clit, and since she was sensitive from just coming, another quickly followed with the loud moans of his name. Naruto licked up her juices again and kissed her womanhood and looked up at her and smiled at her again. She knew he enjoyed eating her out. She pulled Naruto back up to her and started kissing him some more, and she could taste herself when she slipped her tongue in his mouth and rolled him over and ran her hand down body and into his boxes and grabbed a hold of his throbbing member and gave it a slow stroke, cause him to moan. Ino broke the kiss and slid his boxes down his body and looked at his fully erect member and quickly went to work on her boyfriend, taking the tip into her mouth as she stroked him quickly. She started to stroke slower as she started to take more and more of him into her mouth until she was deep-throating him at 3/4 of his length and couldn't get any more inside of her mouth. She took her mouth back up to the tip and started to bob her head up and down on him quickly, and he put his hand on her head and she kept going. Loving every time she heard him moan her name from the pleasure that she was giving him, and he started to pulse and she knew he was close and took her mouth back to just the tip and stroked him quickly and softly bit the tip, and he came in her mouth and she swallowed all of his cum like she always did. She loved how he tasted and she licked up his tip and smiled at him. She remembered a couple days before he left for his mission when they had a play argument about who liked pleasuring the other more. It turned into a competition of who could pleasure the other more, and he won in the end. He knew how to eat her out as if it was second nature to him. She crawled back up his body and positioned herself on top of him and had his erect again members tip at her entrance. "Are you ready, Naruto-kun?" Naruto nodded at her. In all honesty, he was a little nervous that she might moan his name again, but he knew how they both wanted this so badly as Ino lowered herself on his member slowly and they both moaned out. Ino began rocking her hips as she sat on his hips and got used to his size. He wasn't small in any way. Naruto reached up and cupped Ino's cheek and brought her into a kiss and rolled her over to put her on bottom again and put his hand on her hip and started to pull out to the tip and thrust all the way in hard and quick, making her moan loudly, "Naruto." Naruto mentally gave a sigh of relief, and she felt that he relaxed more when she moaned his name and pulled him into another kiss as he continued to pull out to the tip and thrust all the way back in, but was doing it quickly, and she moaned into his mouth, "So good. Naruto. I love you." Naruto kissed her neck and leaned his head on her pillow as she tightened on his member and orgasmed for the third time that evening. Ino-chan. I love you. Too. Naruto started to move quicker than before, and Ino's eyes rolled into the back of her head. His stamina was intense and her walls tightened on him again as she orgasmed again quickly, and Naruto smirked and started to run his hand that was on her hip to her clit and pinched it while keeping up the intense pace, and she became the tightest he had ever felt and she orgasmed harder than she ever had. "Oh god, Naruto-kun." Naruto kissed her and kept on going and was getting close to the edge, and she knew it. Even with her mind being partially gone, she could feel him pulsing inside of her and locked her legs around his waist, and when he tried to pull out she wouldn't let him. "Ino-chan. I need to pull out." Ino shook her head no as he continued to play with her clit and his motions had come to a teasing slow, no Naruto-kun. I am. Using birth control patches so. You don't have to pull out. Oh god. He pinched her clit tightly as she said he didn't have to pull out and went back all the way to his top speed and her back arched and her eyes rolled back again and she kept moaning his name loudly when she tightened to an insane amount again and moaned, Naruto. He erupted inside of her and moaned out, Ino-chan, as he fell down on top of her and panted as they were both covered in sweat. Naruto rolled off of her onto her side and had a smile on his face as she cuddled into his side and he wrapped his arm around her. That was amazing. Ino-chan. Ino smiled and laughed a little and she looked at her boyfriend and his smile and sat up and kissed him passionately. I love you so much Naruto-kun. Naruto looked at her and smiled as he put his hand on her cheek and pulled her in for another passionate kiss and as they broke, I love you more Ino-chan. Ino smiled as he said something that always lead to another one of their play arguments but she was too tried at the moment and laid her head down on his chest. Just this once Naruto-kun, I will let you get away with that. Naruto smiled as he did a hand sign and a gust of wind blew out all the candles and he wrapped his arm around her and felt that she had already fallen asleep and he closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep as well. The couple woke up to the sound of knocking the next day and Ino looked at the time to see it was only 8 in the morning and cuddled back into Naruto's chest. The knocking didn't stop though and Naruto looked at her as she sighed and put on Naruto's boxes and grabbed his black shirt from yesterday and opened the door and saw someone she wasn't expecting, Daddy. Naruto's eyes shot open in her bedroom as she exclaimed that her father was here and he instantly panicked as he heard her father speak, I see that Naruto is here as well. Ino looked back at her bedroom and Naruto slipped on his pants, hoping not to zip himself since Ino had his boxes on and he walked out of her bedroom and looked at Inoiki, Hello Mr. Yamanaka. Inoiki looked at him and then at Ino, he knew that they were physical at this point but still she was his daughter, so what went on here last night? Ino and Naruto both blushed and Naruto walked over by Ino and kissed her cheek. We had unfinished business before I was called away on my mission last week that we wanted to finish. Ino had always been proud that Naruto wasn't scared of her father made him nervous yeah but he wasn't afraid of the man. Inoiki looked from Naruto to Ino and then back at Naruto, well, I hope that you two are at least being safe, you've only been together for what 5 months. Ino smiled at her father and wrapped her hands around Naruto's waist, close to 6 months now actually and we are being safe daddy, I am using birth control patches. Inoiki nodded, he really couldn't stop them, they were both adults and Ino didn't live at home so he could at least rest a little easier knowing they were being safe. Well I was going to take Ino out for some breakfast, it's a weekly things that we do. Ino remembered that it was Thursday, she had forgotten what the day was except for the fact that Naruto came home that day and she looked at her father, sorry daddy, I completely forgot, I was too wrapped up in Naruto-kun coming home. Naruto smiled and looked over at Inoiki, well if you give Ino-chan a moment to change so that I can get some of my clothes back I will head home and you two can enjoy your breakfast together. The two men watched Ino go into her bedroom and close the door and Inoiki looked at his daughter's boyfriend. He respected Naruto, he had done a lot for the village and he was always respectful to him and a gentleman to his daughter, you know Naruto, you could join us. Naruto scratched the back of his head, the offer was tempting, it's tempting but this is your thing with Ino-chan, I wouldn't want to intrude on that. Inoiki smiled at Naruto and patted the young man on his shoulder, that's why I like you Naruto, you put others before yourself, but I would like it if you joined us. Naruto smiled at Inoiki, he was happy to know that Inoiki liked him and seemed to approve of Ino and his relationship, well, why don't we see what Ino-chan would like and let her decide sir. Inoiki nodded and Ino came out of her bedroom and handed Naruto his boxes and shirt and smiled at him, go get changed so we can go to breakfast. Naruto smiled at her and gave her a quick kiss and walked into her bedroom and quickly changed as her father and her talked. Naruto never realized how thin the walls actually were. Thank you for inviting Naruto-kun to come as well daddy, I hope you still approve of us. Inoiki smiled at his daughter as they waited for Naruto, of course princess, he is your boyfriend after all and he seems to only want what's best for you. Ino and Inoiki smiled and chuckled as they knew Naruto was almost done getting dressed as he fell over on the floor and started to swear about his shoes, he does only want what's best for me daddy, I can guarantee you that. Inoki smiled and then the bedroom door opened and Naruto walked out of the bedroom putting his headband in his pocket since Ino always loved when he wore his hair down. Sorry about that, I think I need to get new shoes here soon. They all walked out and Ino locked her apartment and they walked down and saw some Nara clan members at the bottom waiting and Naruto looked at him, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto looked over at him and squinted his eyes as Shikaku stood in front of the group and he sighed, Mr. Yamanaka, please take Ino-chan to breakfast, looks like I won't be able to join you today. Inoki looked over at Shikaku and stood there next to Naruto and Ino looked at Naruto with worry and Inoki spoke, Shikaku, what's going on here? Shikaku looked over at Inoki and then back at Naruto. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki broke my son's wrist, leg and his arm yesterday, I have come for my retaliation. Naruto looked over at the Nara clan members all getting ready to try and trap him with shadow possession. Your son is supposed to stay away from Ino and he didn't. We have paperwork that says if he gets close to us I am allowed to use whatever force I deem necessary to get rid of him. He is lucky that I haven't just killed him yet. You or your clan members attack me for the reason of your son being a stalker, then I am within my rights to attack you all back without worry of consequence. There was a female voice yelling for them all to stop and Tsunade walked in between them all and Tsunade looked over at Naruto and then at Shikaku. Shikaku, Naruto is right that they have a restraining order placed on Shikamaru that is he gets near Naruto or Ino then they are allowed to take action against him. They have dealt with Shikamaru's constant annoyance for nearly 6 months now and Shikamaru is running out of lives. I know that Ino would rather just kill him and get it over with, but Naruto is trying to be patient with your son. You're not authorized to take action against Naruto or Ino for your son's stupidity. You should relay this conversation to your son because I am not sure how much longer Naruto will just put up with him. Shikaku whispered to his clan members and they all nodded and Inoki looked at Naruto. I am guessing that Shikamaru didn't inform them about the restraining order. Naruto was watching him carefully and then Shikaku spoke up. We didn't know about the restraining order but Naruto still went over the edge with this. He deserves some kind of punishment and we request that Inoki be the one to decide it. Tsunade sighed and agreed and looked over at Naruto and Ino and smiled. Inoki Yamanaka, punish Naruto in whatever way you deem fit. Inoki looked confused and then looked at his daughter's boyfriend then at Ino. Ino, kiss Naruto as his punishment for defending you. Ino smirked as she looked at Naruto and he turned to face her and she pulled him in for a passionate and loving kiss that lasted for a couple of minutes and when they broke she spoke, you are a naughty boy Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled at her and put his arm around her waist and kissed her cheek and then whispered in her ear, you would know. Ino blushed a crimson red and then Naruto looked at Tsunade and she looked at Shikaku. Inoki punished Naruto in the way he deemed fit, your request has been filled. The Nara clan members started to murmur about what actually happened as they walked off and Shikaku looked across at Naruto and Naruto spoke, I really don't want to have to keep hurting Shikamaru, Mr. Nara. But on the same side I won't let him keep trying to ruin my relationship with Ino-chan, I will give him no more passes and next time I will take his life. Please inform him of this. Naruto, Ino and Inoki walked off to go eat their breakfast together and Shikaku turned and went back to the Nara estate to have a talk with his son. As the three were walking Naruto noticed that the new apartment complex was finally built and there was a sign on it that said it was offering discounts to shinobi couples and he looked at Ino and then back ahead of them and thought to himself, I wonder if she would want to live together. Inoki had noticed Naruto's actions and smiled as he figured Naruto was going to ask Ino soon to move in with him but Ino had noticed the apartment complex while Naruto was gone and was already hoping he would ask her. The three of them ate breakfast at a small little diner and when everyone seemed to be done Naruto got up and said he was going to the bathroom and paid the check and came back. They sat there talking for about 20 minutes and when the waitress walked by Inoki spoke up, Miss, can I please get the check? The waitress looked at him in a confused fashion and then looked at Naruto and pointed at him, he already paid the check. Inoki looked over at Naruto who instantly turned his gaze away to out the window and Ino smiled as Inoki spoke, Naruto I invited you. Naruto looked back at Ino's father and smiled at him as his arm was around Ino, I know that you did sir, that is why I paid for letting me come along, it's only right, Inoki gave Naruto an irritated look, what about 2 weeks ago when you invited Ino's mother and I out for a dinner with you and you paid the bill saying that you invited us so it was only right. Ino looked at Naruto who scratched the back of his head as he smiled at her, I forgot to mention that too you didn't I Ino-chan. Ino squinted her eyes at him and nodded her head, and her father smiled. This was good enough for Naruto, always refusing to let him pay. So what did you three talk about? Naruto smiled at her and leaned down and kissed her on the cheek. We talked about you, of course, Ino-chan, and some other things, the weather, missions, you some more. Ino continued to squint and glare at her boyfriend. What exactly about me did you and my parents talk about? Naruto smiled as he had to change the subject soon. Can't tell her I asked her parents for permission to ask her to move into an apartment with me. He leaned down and captured her lips in a passionate kiss, and when they broke he spoke sweetly to her. We talked about how amazing and beautiful you are, Ino-chan. Ino's glare instantly went away and she smiled at him and laid her head on his shoulder, and Inoki smiled. He is good. Naruto looked over at Inoki and smiled, as if they were both saying he got away with that by the skin of his teeth. Inoki got up and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and nodded to him, and then said goodbye to the couple, and Naruto stood up and offered Ino his hand. She took his hand and they walked out of the diner together, and as they were walking by the couple apartment complex he stopped and looked at Ino. Ino-chan. Ino hadn't been paying attention to where they were walking. She had her eyes closed and was leaning on him and opened them when she heard him say her name. What is it, Naruto-kun? Naruto looked nervous, which was something that was rare and only happened when he thought it was something major and had to do with him. Well, I was wondering, would you maybe, like to, live with me? I understand if you don't though, no rush or anything, so yeah. Ino smiled at him. He was always so adorable when he stuttered out of nervousness, and Ino looked behind her to see the new couples apartment complex that offered the discounts for shinobi couples, and she looked back at him and smiled. Of course, Naruto-kun. Naruto's face lit up with happiness as he hugged Ino and pulled her in for a kiss, and they walked into the apartment complex and found the manager's office, and he approved them getting a room, and they got a 30% monthly discount for the caliber missions that Naruto went on, and then an extra 20% for Inos as well. Altogether they had to pay 700 ryo a month, and they got all their utilities for free. They agreed to the terms and he gave them each a key to their new apartment, and they walked up the stairs since they lived on the second floor and opened the door to 2B, and they walked inside and looked around. Wow. Big apartment. Naruto looked around as it was partially furnished, and he turned and smiled at Ino, who looked like she was tearing up. Ino-chan, what's wrong? Naruto hadn't sensed that she was upset or anything, but he was still pretty unclear on a lot of things when it came to women, and Ino smiled at him. Nothing is wrong, Naruto-kun, I am happy. Naruto smiled at her and walked over to her and pulled her into a hug and kissed her, and then did his shadow clone jutsu hand sign and gave one clone his key to his apartment and one clone his key to Inos, and the 100 clones split into two groups and went and started to retrieve all of the couple's belongings and brought them back as Ino and Naruto started to set up their new place together. Kiba and Hinata had noticed all of the Naruto clones and followed them and saw that they were going into the new couple's apartment, and they smiled and Kiba spoke. Looks like they took the next step. Hinata nodded and they decided to go and congratulate the couple, and the door was open for all the clones and they entered, but Kiba still knocked to let them know someone was here. Naruto heard the knock and yelled from the living room where he was sorting things with Ino, "We are in here, whoever you are." Kiba and Hinata came into the living room and smiled at their friends as they were deciding where things would go, and Naruto had 5 clones from each group hang back after bringing some of the larger things to put things in their new spots. Hey Kiba and Hinata, how are you two doing? Excited for your wedding next month? Kiba and Hinata both nodded, and Kiba looked around the apartment. Damn, this place is huge, dude. What's your rent? Naruto looked at a weird piece of furniture and asked Ino, and she said it went in the living room and he put it aside. 700 a month plus free utilities. We got a 50% discount from the missions that we do. It's nice since I paid the same at my old place and this place is a lot better. Kiba and Hinata smiled at the couple and watched as a couple of Naruto clones carried in Inos' bed, and they looked at Naruto, master bedroom. The clones nodded and walked to the master bedroom and put the bed in place and left again, and the Kiba and Hinata talked for a minute. Hey, we will be back in like 20 minutes. We are going to go see about getting an apartment here as well. Naruto and Ino smiled as the couple walked out, and Ino looked over at Naruto. Don't they already live together, Naruto-kun? Naruto nodded as he put aside some scrolls to go in the den. Yeah, they do, but their place is kind of small and they pay about 600 ryo a month. If they can get a good deal, they would love to get out of there. Ino smiled as the Naruto clones came back with Naruto's bed, and Ino looked at him. Spare bedroom. The clones didn't go and looked at Naruto and he smiled. Why are you looking at me? She is the boss, so put it in the spare bedroom. Ino smiled at Naruto's comment and they finished sorting all the boxes and they started to set everything up and Naruto commented, I bet it will come down to if they allow dogs. Ino started to laugh at Naruto's comment and then Kiba and Hinata walked by and they opened the door next door to Naruto and Ino and they came back to their friend's apartment. We live next door to you guys it seems. Naruto smiled and looked over at Ino. I guess they do. Well, I should warn you that I make Ino feel good, so you better hope the walls are thick. Ino threw a ball at Naruto's head as she blushed deeply and Naruto fell back on his ass. Well, that wasn't very nice, Ino-chan. Ino walked over to him and leaned down and kissed him and he smiled as she broke the kiss and then she whispered in his ear, you embarrass me again and you won't be getting any thank you sex tonight, Naruto-kun. Naruto gasped and nodded at her and she smiled and turned around and Naruto smiled at her as he got up and Kiba and Hinata smiled. Hey Naruto, can I borrow some of your clones to help us move? Naruto nodded and sent 80 clones with them to help them since all of Naruto and Ino's things were already here and getting put away by Naruto, Ino and his remaining 20 clones, and when they were done he released his 20 clones and closed the door to their new apartment and looked back at a smiling Ino. I hope you're happy and okay with this, Ino-chan. Ino came over to Naruto and put her hand on his cheek and kissed his chin. I am Naruto-kun, I am just happy that you asked me and I didn't have to ask you. Naruto smiled as he lifted her up and she wrapped her legs around him. I may not be too smart with some relationship stuff, but even I know I am supposed to ask you those kinds of things, Ino-chan. Naruto kissed her neck and she let out a small moan and then there was a knocking at the door and he carried her over to the door and opened it to see Sakura standing there who was blushing by how Ino and Naruto were and Ino spoke hastily, there's something that you need, Sakura. Sakura looked up and away from the couple as Ino felt irritated and went to close the door but Sakura stopped her. Naruto, can you go on a mission with me? Naruto looked at her. No, I just got back from a S-rank mission last night so I have a week off that I plan to spend with my beautiful girlfriend. Naruto closed the door with his foot and pushed Ino up against the door and started to kiss her neck some more and she moaned out his name and told him to put her down. Do I have to, Ino-chan? Ino nodded and Naruto, unwillingly, put her down on the ground and she smiled at him. We will continue that tonight, Naruto-kun. For now I want to relax and enjoy just spending time with you in our apartment. Naruto smiled and she led him by the hand to the couch and turned it on and Naruto sat down as she put in a movie. What are we going to watch, Ino-chan? Ino came and sat down next to Naruto and she put her head on his shoulder. We are going to watch Never Back Down. I just can't get enough of Sean Ferris. Naruto rose his eyebrow at her and smiled a little. Oh, should I be jealous of this Sean Ferris guy then, Ino-chan? Ino smiled and looked up at him and nodded her head. You should, but you don't have to worry about anything, Naruto-kun. He lives on a different continent, we could never make it work. Naruto smiled and they watched the movie together and Naruto decided to tease Ino back. The female lead is really good looking. Ino rose an eyebrow and looked at Naruto. Oh really, Naruto-kun? Sounds like I should be the one that is jealous now. Naruto smiled at her and kissed her forehead. You don't have to be, I couldn't pick anyone over you. Ino smiled and leaned up and kissed him and laid her head down on his chest. That was a good answer, Naruto-kun, and I don't think I would pick Sean over you either. Naruto smiled as he pulled her close to him knowing what she was actually saying and kissed her on top of the head. I love you too, Ino-chan. There was a knocking at the door again and Naruto got up to answer it and saw Kiba and Hinata standing there. Hey, we were wondering if you two wanted to go out with us tonight since neither of us want to cook after moving. Naruto smiled at his friends and told them to let him ask Ino and she smiled at him and turned off the movie and grabbed her keys and Naruto grabbed his wallet and keys. Alright, let's go. They got to an all-you-can-eat barbecue joint and Kiba and Naruto had agreed to split the bill evenly and Kiba looked up from the food. I heard you had a visit from the Nara clan this morning. Naruto nodded as he took a bite from his food and swallowed it. Yeah, Shikaku wasn't happy that I hurt Shikamaru so badly but Shikamaru never told him about the restraining order we have against him and I am within my rights to use whatever force I deem necessary. I told Shikaku to tell Shikamaru next time I am going to kill him because I have grown tired of his little game. Kiba nodded as he looked at his friend. They didn't demand any type of punishment or anything for you. The Nara clan is an influential clan in Konohagakure. Naruto smiled as he looked over at Ino. No, they demanded that Mr. Yamanaka decide the punishment, and he decided my punishment was Ino had to give me a kiss. Kiba laughed a little as he looked at the blonde couple. That must have been the worst punishment that you have ever been through, Naruto. Naruto smiled at his friend and then looked at Ino. If that is my punishment when I am bad, then I will have to be bad more. Ino blushed a little as Naruto looked at her, and then she looked at Hinata. How are the wedding plans going, Hinata? Hinata smiled at her friend and looked at Kiba. They are all done. All we are waiting for is the day to get here now. You still going to be my maid of honor, Ino? Ino nodded her head and smiled at her friend. Hinata and her had gotten really close after the war. Of course, Hinata, you're my best friend. Naruto smiled at this and looked at Kiba. You see, you're supposed to ask and not just assume it, Kiba. Not that I would have said no or anything like that. Kiba laughed a little at the comment and remembered when he showed up at Naruto's apartment and told him they were going to go get fitted for tuxes since he was his best man, and Naruto's confused face. Oh, we just like to see that confused face, Naruto, it makes us laugh. Ino smiled at the two men and intertwined her fingers with Naruto's. And now you don't have to worry about someone else walking down the aisle with me. Naruto nodded his head yes, since that was a very true statement. He wouldn't have been happy watching someone else be by Ino when she would look so beautiful. Yeah, I am the jealous type. Ino laid her head on Naruto's shoulder and yawned and apologized for yawning, but they all said that it was fine. Let's get you home, Ino-chan. You are tired after today. Ino smiled at Naruto and he helped her out of the booth, and Kiba did the same for Hinata, and they walked to the door and Naruto went to pay the whole bill, but Kiba beat him to it, making Naruto start to mutter and swear, and the two women smiled. They are still boys at heart, aren't they, Hinata? Hinata just nodded her head as Kiba came and placed his arm around her, and Naruto saw Ino yawn again and he lifted her up into his arms and carried her. Naruto-kun, just because I am tired doesn't mean I can't walk. Naruto smiled at her and continued to carry her. Are you saying that you don't like when I carry you, Ino-chan? Ino squinted her eyes at him. You know damn well that isn't what I am saying, Naruto-kun, and you know that I love when you carry em. Naruto silenced her with a kiss, and when he broke it he smiled at her. If you love it, then let me carry you like I want to. Ino smiled and blushed a little as she buried her head into his shoulder and yawned again. When they got to the apartment, Ino was surprised that Naruto was able to unlock the door and hold her at the same time, but he was strong. Naruto carried her to the master bedroom and laid her down on the bed and sat down and took off her shoes and sock, then did the same and removed his shirt and lied down as Ino cuddled into his chest. Naruto-kun. Naruto opened his eyes a little and looked at her and smiled, but saw she looked worried. What's wrong, Ino-chan? Did I do something? Ino shook her head no and continued to look at him, worried he was going to be mad. Aren't you angry with me at all, Naruto-kun? Naruto looked at her and was confused now. He had no idea why he was supposed to be angry. Why would I be angry with you, Ino-chan? Ino kissed his chest and then looked back up at him. Well, I said we could have sex tonight and I was yawning and you carried me home and you're not even trying to persuade me to. Naruto looked at her still confused. I don't care if we have sex or not, Ino-chan. You seem tired and exhausted and I am just as happy lying here with you. Ino smiled at his comment and cuddled into him more. Another thing that made him better than Shikamaru, he didn't expect sex all the time. He was just as happy to spend time with her. Thank you, Naruto-kun. I really am tired and I didn't think it would take that much out of me today. Naruto smiled at her and pulled her up into a kiss, and she laid her head on his shoulder. You know that I would never try to force you or pressure you into something that you didn't want, Ino-chan. Ino smiled and nodded and looked up at her boyfriend. She could honestly see herself spending the rest of her life with the man and slowly feel asleep as he held her close to him. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.